What keeps me up at night is the pressure to perform, probably. If I've got a big moment, it'll be actually I want to really nail it. The last thing, if you're leading a business, is you want everyone the same. You want diverse experience, and athletes have this really cool experience in high pressure environments.
If I was someone who is skeptical, and if I didn't know you, and if I was looking on the outside, is there a chance I might think Rugby Australia has put you on to be more of a figurehead, to have McClellan pulling the strings behind the scenes?
Accordingly, it's sloppy. There's Phil Waugh. Phil Waugh, hammer time.
This is probably the worst kept secret in Australia. Phil Waugh is the new CEO of Rugby Australia, known for his grit and his hardness and his high standards.
Straight to Phil Waugh, that pass from Potke.
An illustrious business career where he's worked at the National Australia Bank.
A lot of focus goes on to World Cups. I think what's really important for rugby in Australia is winning between World Cups as well.
What's your number one productivity tip?
Make decisions quickly. What frustrates me the most is people who don't make decisions. And if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. Not making a decision is not a right decision. I've played with a lot of passion on the field, and I intend to have that same level of passion and commitment in the role I'm going into.
Who's captain at home?
Not me.
Optimize performance through adapting your physical, psychological, and emotional state. Hello, it's Andrew May, and welcome to another episode of the Performance Intelligence Podcast, the podcast about all things human performance. Before we start this episode, I wanted to take a quick moment to ask a favour of you. Please open the podcast app you're listening on right now and hit the follow button. This really supports us growing the podcast and also helps continue to produce high quality conversations around high performance. You listen to us and we want to listen to you. So please also consider leaving a rating and review. Tell us what you love about this episode and what you'd like to hear more of. Give us some feedback, as it really does make a difference to what we're doing behind the scenes. Phil Waugh is a former Australian rugby union footballer who played 79 games for the Wallabies, 3 as captain, and he played 136 games, 58 as captain for the New South Wales Waratahs. His preferred position was open side breakaway, where his goal was to be a menace for the opposing team's back row. Phil was awarded the John Eales Medal as the best Wallabies player in 2003. After retiring in 2011, he successfully transitioned to the world of banking and finance. He worked for 3 of the big 4. It was hard to keep up with him, starting as National Head of Asset Finance at CBA, then moving to St George Auto before he headed up COVID response and private wealth at Westpac, before changing jerseys again and working as an executive in NAB's home ownership domain. Phil has an extensive background as a media commentator. He has been a trustee of the Sydney Cricket Ground for 6 years and for 5 years non-executive director for Rugby Australia. He was recently appointed as the new CEO of Rugby Australia. Phil is married to Abby and he's the proud father of 4 energetic boys, Jack, Charlie, George and Arthur. Phil's guidance and mentoring at a Tour de Cure charity ball is one of the reasons why I am also a proud father of 4. Phil Waugh, welcome to the podcast.
Good to be here.
Interesting intro, isn't it? Saying you're responsible for me having 4 children. Do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, I mean, I do remember that conversation we had, and I'd only just had George, I think it was, and I was talking about the excitement of being back in the trenches with a young baby, and I think at the time you were thinking I'm completely mad, and I was probably thinking the same thing. But we talked about just the fact that life's short, leaning in, and having no regrets, and I think that hopefully you've got no regrets, and your 2 young ones are filling you with a lot of joy.
No regrets, apart from when I see school fees, when I'm at home sometimes and there's a crazy house, I blame you. But no, I thank you, because I was struggling at that stage, because I had 2 kids similar to you from first marriage and had repartnered. And Tony wanted more kids, and I was like, I'm not sure. We broke up, we got back together, and you said, look, mate, what are you doing? I'll paraphrase, but if you're going to have more kids and you're with a younger partner, why don't you? It's much easier than having kids come from another relationship. And it just dawned on me. So from that moment, I attribute you to helping me get over the baggage I had in my head about having a modern family.
And that's why you look so happy today, mate.
It is. And you're happy as well. The recently appointed CEO of Rugby Australia. A rough framework, though, today. I'd like to talk about performing as an athlete. Performing in life, like I want to know, how do you stay fit, healthy, vibrant, looking suave every time I see you in a coffee shop in the lower North Shore? Performing in banking and finance, and then performing in your new role. Exciting yet challenging role. Now, as a breakaway, tearing away, you tend to play to your own rules. Do you want to go sequentially? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll do performance uncovered, or do you want to just pick a number and go for it?
Mate, I'll run it however you want to run it, and I'll be very transparent around my thoughts. And I mean, I always say performance is the most important thing, and everything stems from performance. And so we'll bounce through.
We're on the right page, because researching you, that was the thread that came through for me, is about performance. So let's start sequentially. As an athlete, go back as a young kid. What were you like?
I was energetic and ambitious. I think I was hungry. I mean, I was a terror. Mum and Dad put me into the Narrabeen Tigers when I was 4 because I was so hard to manage at home, I think, and played 3 years in the under sevens, and that was when under sevens was contact, and so fully contested scrums and tackle, and so I was half the size of everyone else. But that sort of grew my hunger for the game, and it's tough when you see goes, is it nature or is it nurture in terms of that competitiveness? But I was just a super competitive young kid from the Northern Beaches that wanted to do well and just loved all sports. So whether it was rugby or cricket or athletics or surfing, I just love being active and being out there and being competitive.
Nature or nurture is an interesting argument. There's a great book, David Epstein, Range. Have you read that?
No.
It talks about the collective experience of what you've done gets you to where you are. And it's not the most talented athlete or the most talented banker that goes to the top. It's an athlete that gets experience along the way. And if I look at your career, from what you're saying as a young kid, you weren't the biggest. I imagine you weren't the fastest, but you had that mongrel in you.
Yeah, and I think that I've seen so many good athletes come into a rugby environment, and you think this athlete's superior to everyone else. They'll go on and play for the Wallabies for 10 years, and they're not mentally tough, and they get injured and they drop out. And on the other side, you see athletes come in that you sort of go, well, actually, probably not that athletic, doesn't test that well, but then when they go out and perform, they've got that mental toughness, and I think that's that's the difference. And when you get those athletes that come through with that mental strength and that persistence and resilience, those are the ones that go on, not necessarily the most gifted naturally. And so it's just very much a combination of both. And I've always heard people say, I've got a young 18, 19-year-old come in really talented, just need to make him a little bit more mentally tough. I'm like, well, probably needed him when he was 3 or 4, not when he was 18 or 19.
How do you test that? Because I know some of the rugby league talent scouts will look at 2 kids, and if one comes from a private school, has a double barrel hyphenated name and is dropped off in the Rolls Royce or the limo, and another kid comes from a challenging socioeconomic and a challenging family environment, everything being equal, they'll choose the kid that has had adversity in their life. How do you test that? How do you train that for the 18 or 19-year-old kid that comes in, has got all the talent, but they get a paper cut and they think it's a grade 1 hamstring tear?
I try not to judge who's had a privileged background versus who's had a more challenging background, because the kid with a more privileged background may be just as mentally tough as that young kid who's had a challenging background. You see it really quickly. You see it in an environment, particularly in rugby, where you've got that contest within the contest. Whether it's in the breakdown or something's a bit niggly, and you see the response really quickly. So I find that I can see it really quickly, and I think that good talent identification identifies that really quickly in identifying young boys and girls that have got that real mental toughness.
Is there a standout game when you look back on your career? Like, you played hundreds of games at the top level professional. You would have played hundreds and hundreds for school at Shaw, a big rugby school here in Sydney. Is there a standout moment when you go, oh, that's where I fell in love with the game, or I knew that this was my game?
It's the old cliche, but it's literally one game at a time, and then you sort of go through the journey, and it was very much always focus on performance, and you've got to play as well as you possibly can in the game you're in to then get the opportunity at your next game. And so it sort of evolves, and whilst you sort of go on and play World Cup finals, you go through the juniors and grassroots, but to get the next opportunity, you've got to perform. And so it was, if I go back to one game, and I just got off the phone talking about 20 years since the Rugby World Cup final in 2003. And
doesn't that make you feel old? For
makes you
anyone
feel-
listening
makes you-
and goes 2003, I remember where I was. We're going to talk about that. Gosh, that's gone quick.
Yeah, and that semi-final we beat the All Blacks, but it's all about performing on the way there, and you've got to perform to get the next opportunity. And it's a bit like business, and you sort of people are always looking for their next job. And I always say that if you're doing your job that you're in now really well, that'll actually give you optionality. If you're looking for your next job and not doing the job you're in really well, then you'll have a really narrow level of options. And so it's all. And I know it probably becomes a bit boring, but it's actually just how do you win the contest you're in right now, and then win the next contest. You do that well, you're going to then have an overall really strong performance, which then gives you the next opportunity.
But you were like a ferret, like you just like you'd go diving in. You still you had the long hair back then, didn't you? You had the pretty long locks.
Still growing back, yeah.
I had long hair then too, mate. Yeah, but you just love the contest. So when you're looking at kids, or what are you going to do with Rugby Australia to try and get more kids playing rugby? What's going to be your message to young boys and young girls? Like, thankfully, we've caught up right now. There are pathways and lots of opportunities for women's rugby as well. How are you going to recruit? Because rugby league has just go back to 2003. In that last 2 decades, rugby league has just accelerated, and union has probably not even gone sideways. It's gone backwards.
It has in Australia. Globally, rugby is very healthy, and you go up into Europe, and there'll be a lot of criticism here around the rules and interpretation, and the game's too slow and too technical. Go up to Stade de France and 80,000 people, and it's a slow game and it's technical, and people are going absolutely crazy for the game. So really important from a global aspect to look at the context. In terms of the grassroots, we always say that Rugby Australia has the responsibility of being the governing body, but our public and our boys and girls in the community own the game, and we need to really focus on that connection back into the community. I'm a big believer in governing bodies being responsible for the social elements of keeping boys and girls active on weekends and active after school. And so, whilst there's a lot of competition between the codes, I'm an advocate for coexisting with the other codes and saying, well, actually, if a boy or a girl's playing rugby league or AFL or soccer on a Saturday, I'm less concerned about that as I am making sure they're getting an experience of rugby and playing rugby as well. And I think if we can get as many boys and girls playing rugby, we'll be the net beneficiary because of it's such a narrow talent pool within Australia because of our population and because of the competing sports. So, if we can get more boys and girls experiencing rugby, and then we've got the global aspect of the game of rugby, I think that we've got a lot of upside.
We are unique as a country. We've got NRL, which we're the dominant NRL force in the world. We've got rugby, and it's been up and down, but we're still very, very competitive in world rugby. Then we've got AFL, which the only other game close to that is Gaelic football, but we've got like rock stars. You look at AFL, look at across the teams, how many of those centre-half forwards would you love to have jumping a line out? Like how many of those rucks would you love ferreting in as a scrum like you did? And then we've got football or soccer, and we've got people competing on a world stage. So that's one of your biggest challenges. Like, got to cut out these other sports, mate.
Well, or you coexist, right? And we've got so many good athletes across the country, but as you say, we've got so many high-level professional games, and as you say, AFL, predominantly in the southern states, rugby league, mostly New South Wales, a little bit into Queensland, and so it's a really competitive environment. I think that the global aspect of our game is our differentiator, and we need to leverage that. We need to give young boys and girls experience of that international coverage and travel and everything else that rugby brings to those that are fortunate enough to play it. And the beautiful thing about rugby is if you play in a club here in Australia, you can travel anywhere in the world and walk into a rugby club and you'll feel at home and you'll feel welcomed. And it's a really cool sport to be a part of.
So you got in your back pocket some of those strategies already. Some of the young NRL players, Mr. Waugh, why should I leave insert NRL club? Young man, young woman, here's the world. The world is your oyster. It's competitive, and it was competitive for you. A quote from the Sydney Morning Herald a number of years ago says, Phil Waugh was noted for his ability at ruck time, his strength in the tackle and skill with ball in hand. He's somewhat unfortunate to have been born in the same generation as rival George Smith. I don't know whether you agree with that, though. Was it unfortunate or fortunate to be born at the same time?
Well, I'd say fortunate. And we actually grew up playing against each other and with each other on the Northern Beaches from when we were about 13 or 14. So I've known George for a long time. And I actually did a photo shoot yesterday with George, and we were laughing that the World Cup was 20 years ago. But George is just such a lovely guy. But you go through the best Wallabies that have ever played for the Wallabies, and George would be right up there. And over 100 tests and played globally and played at top level throughout his it's probably about a 20-year career at the top level. So I always say the best thing about having someone as good as that in your position is that it pushes you to perform better. It pushes you to the next level. If you get to that level of you're comfortable in your role and you haven't got someone pushing you, then you don't really hit your potential. And having George there certainly lifted me to the heights that I was fortunate enough to reach. But he went on, and he's as I said, one of the best Wallabies ever.
So performance, competition. Do you ever down-regulate, or do you ever not be the guy who's on? And I've known you for a number of years. When you were working at CommBank a number of years ago, it was at Darling Park. You were downstairs in the coffee shop. I can't even remember. It wasn't Quinton Boys. Quinton connected us after that for something. I can't remember who the first person was, but you were going through a marriage separation at that time, and so was I. But did you even just power through that? Or did you just sort of wake up one morning and go, yeah, it's all fine, I'll move through? Or did that rock you a little bit? Because everything I see you do, you seem to handle so well.
Yeah, I think you need to be rocked, right? I think it's healthy to be vulnerable at certain times, and then it's around. I also go, focus and vision and positivity. I think that you want to be one of those people that people get energy from, and that you're not sapping energy from people. And so I always look at like that. It's like life's pretty short, right? So and I'm a big believer in sort of leaning in and having a swing and having a crack and being positive about what you're doing. And so for me, it's what's the next task? What's the next challenge? How do we enjoy what we do?
I struggled heaps from my marriage breakdown because I'd always been the performer. I'd done well at school, well at sport, well at business, and suddenly I had a marriage failure. And I like internally, I didn't process it because I thought, I put on this facade outside, and I had to like really hit rock bottom to actually get my shit together. Did you sail through it, or did you really struggle? Because I knew you then, but I didn't really know you'd have that conversation.
I think it's confronting because I started finishing my rugby career and then also finishing marriage, and so it's sort of a reset moment. And I'm a big believer in focusing on physical health to help with mental health, and so ensure that I was kept on training and kept feeling good physically, which then I think naturally goes through to feeling good mentally. And so, it's a tough time, but I think anyone transitioning, and one thing which you didn't mention in that beautiful introduction was just the Sydney to Hobarts that I did. And so I did 6 Sydney to Hobarts, and 2011 we beat Wild Eights by 3 minutes and 8 seconds. And so I think when people retire from a team sport, they lack that experience of being in a team environment. I was very fortunate to replace the rugby team environment with the sailing team environment, and so I had this sort of really cool team that I was still a part of, and so I was always busy and being challenged and looking forward to the next challenge. And I think that staying busy is really, really important.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, so we'll dive into it. But you had some big names on the boat with you: Carl Stefanovic, Larry Emder, Tom Slingsby, Jude Bolton, Guillaume Brahimi, I'm sure I've butchered his name, Michael Clark, Anthony Minicello, Kurtley Beale. Who was the best sailor? Who was the biggest prima donna?
Well, the one name you didn't mention was Kurt Fernley, and you think about impressive people. So in 2011 when we won it, Kurt was on there. And
what a legend.
Incredibly tough. You talk about mental toughness. I mean, Kurt's tough. So I think it was, so we had 16 professional sailors and then 8 sports people or TV celebrities. And but when you're in a team and you're in the boat, like everyone's got their role and you've got to perform your role. If you don't perform your role, the boat breaks down. So, really cool experience. I grew up watching it on the Northern Beaches. You watch a lot of sailing, and then you see the Sydney Hobart and you go, actually, that'd be really cool to do one day. And I was fortunate to do it.
Was anyone a passenger? Come on, give us a name.
There are a few. No, it's actually...
What was Carlos like?
Carl was good. He sort of just went downstairs and slept for 2.5 days and then got up as we going coming up the Derwent waving to everyone. So
Went back
he
to
was good.
Today Show
but-
fresh.
Exactly. But no, it was actually, so I mean, like just that team environment, I think that's the fun part. And even now, all those guys that you mentioned and girls, because obviously Lane Beach was involved as well and Sally Fitzgibbon, but a lot of that team, we're still really close because we shared an experience that put us all out of our comfort zone and we had a great time.
Bit more of an authentic team building experience than you have the corporate trainers come and go, hey, Phil, let's build a go-kart. And you and Sarah are arguing.
Hey,
now
when
you
you-
build a go-kart and you get on. Have you been to any of those awful freaking team building days where you just want to headbutt the
So
instructor?
I think when you're throwing up all over each other, that is team building.
Yeah, big time. Big time. So that transition is huge for a lot of athletes. So many athletes struggle. And I won't pick names from your team, but you could go through a number of guys that you played with throughout your career who were at the top of the world in rugby, haven't made that transition to life. I look at this with rugby league, and one of the things that Anthony Seibold, who's my boss at Manly Sea Eagles, we just want to make sure that players have got a good base outside life. Was that the case when you played? Did you have people saying, what do you do outside? Were you encouraged to get those other skills outside to transition?
Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate having the experience at the University of Sydney and Sydney University Football Club being my club, and so strongly encouraged around education and doing a degree. I sort of started my first subject in 1998 and graduated with 2 degrees in 2011, so it wasn't the fastest education program ever. But
was that because of rugby or because you struggled?
No, because of rugby. So well, a bit of both, actually. That's right. I've repeated it a few times. But I find balance is really important. It actually helps with the rugby. So actually having distraction outside of rugby and not being focused and in the bubble the whole time actually helps with performance. And so I quite like the variety. I think then it's around actually accepting that it's finished and accepting that it's time to move on. And I think that that's the real moment I think athletes need to recognise and put a stake in the ground and say, well, actually, I've had and be appreciative of the journey you've been on in sport, but then say, actually, it's, that really cool journey has come to an end and now it's time to start a new journey. And I think it's actually separating the two rather than trying to morph it into it just keeps going into the next part of your life, because it doesn't. And it's very hard to replace. So actually recognising it, appreciating it, and then starting again.
Hindsight's a wonderful gift. Now you're in your mid-30s?
It'd be nice, wouldn't it? 43.
In your early 40s. Did you know this when you made that transition, or were you just lucky that you finished rugby, you had good contacts, you've got good chat on you as well, you've always formed good relationships, you had the degree, and then you jumped into sailing? Or did you know that's what I needed to do to help me fill the void that rugby has had in my life for so long?
Yeah, I think I accepted it pretty quickly, which was fortunate, but it was those other distractions that helped me accept it. So the sailing, the good guidance from, senior leaders in business. And so then I was very quickly sort of pivoted and said, well, actually, the rugby's finished. I've got this other team environment being the sailing, and then I need to pave the new path for my career post-rugby. So I think you need to deliberately recognise it.
A quick break in the program to let you know about the Performance Intelligence Masterclass. You see, every week we receive a number of requests from people listening to the podcast or attending one of my keynote presentations, wanting to know more about personal performance coaching. Due to the demands on my time, running StriveStronger.com, delivering mental skills training for athletes and sporting teams, my speaking practice, and also having 4 kids, I only allocate a set amount of time each week, about half a day, towards coaching. And this is primarily targeted at senior executives and entrepreneurs and founders. The starting price for my coaching programs is $15,000, which I realise is a lot of money and it's prohibitive for many people. So, based on the success of a 12-month coaching program we've been delivering for a number of corporate clients, we are launching a public version of Performance Intelligence Masterclass. It's open to the public and it's open to people like you. So if you would like to boost your psychological fitness and resilience, enhance physical well-being and energy, if you want to live longer, if you want to increase productivity, if you want to enhance cognitive capacity and decision-making, and if you want to do this with a support group of like-minded people, and if you also want to make more money, Performance Intelligence Masterclass has been designed for you. How does it work? Well, the format is we pick a theme for each quarter, like being match fit or boosting productivity or accelerating mental skills, enhancing leadership, etc. There's a half-day group workshop. Then we have 6 weeks of check-ins where you're made accountable each week just by asking 5 or 6 key questions. And then we wrap that up with a 60 to 90-minute workshop, 6 weeks after the half-day workshop. And then for the rest of the quarter, you put this into practice. To find out more, go to andrewmay.com/Performance Intelligence Masterclass. So post-rugby, one of the things I remember you saying to me in the early days is you'd spent 11 years studying at Sydney University, and when you were back at uni or even back at school, you were one of the jocks, and you were the cool kids and the nerds weren't. And suddenly you went to Combank and some of those nerds were above you. So they made it a little bit hard for you. You had to prove your wares a little bit more than some.
Yeah, and I think one of the hardest things for athletes going into a new environment is actually you're so far behind others that have been in that environment for longer, and you don't necessarily feel like you belong. And so belief is a really big aspect of transitioning, and believing that you've actually you have something to offer that others can't. And when you recognise that, that's a pivotal moment to then transitioning, because otherwise you feel, inferior and you feel that you don't belong. And as soon as you feel like that, you start questioning yourself. And as we know, it's just a downward spiral from there.
And you're behind a decade, because those kids that did go to university straight away, then got maybe a graduate program or went to a consulting firm, then went to a bank sideways, they've had a decade of experience, and you come in your early 30s and you're suddenly sitting there going, what the hell is this? And you knew some of the concepts, but the nuance in business, it takes a while to learn, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'd put it a different way. I wouldn't say you're behind a decade. I'd say that you're on par in terms of the tenure of experience. Your experience is just very different and unique that no one else in there has. And so it's actually pivoting it and saying, well, actually, I haven't been an analyst and I haven't been doing all the business and banking and finance aspects, but I've been doing all this other really cool stuff around high performance and working under enormous pressure. And so you bring a skill set that is very difficult to replicate.
Yeah, good answer on that, because it would be easy to say, hey, we've got this void, because I hear a lot of athletes say that, I'm so behind, I haven't had that experience. So you're saying, well, you've got different experience, lean on that, use that.
100%. Like, it's like, you look at the last thing, if you're leading a business, is you want everyone the same. You want diverse experience, and athletes have this really cool experience in high pressure environments that are very different to what occurs in business every day. And I genuinely think the sooner athletes recognise that and appreciate what they can bring to the environment, the far easier the transition is.
So the 7-year-old tearing around rugby pitches in Sydney, did that 7-year-old want to play for the Wallabies?
Yeah, I would have had the same ambition to play for the Wallabies, whether it was professional or amateur. I was just very lucky it was professional when I got there, but I wanted to play for the Wallabies from a very young age. And I ball boyed for Warringah, and then I watched the Wallabies come back and play club, and so I've very much rugby from a grassroots right through to the professional game is sort of in my blood.
Did the new kid at Combank one day want to be CEO of Rugby Australia or CEO of a big bank?
I love progress, and so I love aspiration and I want to achieve. And so it was certainly my vision to earn the right to go to the next level and then do a really good job there, earn the right then to go to the next level. And so, you got to earn the right. And so my aspiration is probably to get to the top of whatever I'm doing, but you can't rush to get there.
So talk to me, what does earning the right mean? Because I hear Billy Slater say that with Queensland players. You've got to earn the right to put on the maroon jersey. What did earning the right mean for you?
It's about performing at the top level. And, when you're playing, I remember when I first came into a professional playing environment, and I wouldn't do any talking because you had to earn the right to talk. And you earn the right to talk by performing. And once you perform, then you can actually start talking. I mean, it sounds really old school, but I think there's a lot of similarities in then going into a work environment, ensuring that the job I'm doing is as strong and as good as it possibly can be to then earn the right to then have an opportunity at a bigger job. And so it's actually probably getting quite granular into the role you're doing and doing it better than others.
A couple of mutual friends. We've got Quinton Boys and David Lindbergh. Dave's now over in the UK and Quinton is at NAB. I asked them about you. Lindbergh said to me, he said when he first met you, you surprised him because he made what a lot of people do is the mistake that it's a footballer who's been put into banking. He said you could walk into a room. He said he wished he had your conversation skills, just the way you would work a room. And at a function, you'd know all the key people, where they are, where they work. And he said that's a gift. So he wanted to know, do you know how to do that, or is that just natural? Like, do you naturally walk into a room and think, how do I connect? Or have you always just had that chat?
No, I definitely haven't always had that chat. I was incredibly shy as a kid.
I find that hard to believe.
Really? Shy, yeah, like shy in terms of conversationally shy, but like I'll rip into what I was doing. I could probably be a little bit cheeky, which you probably find a little bit more easier to believe. But connectivity is so powerful, and I'm genuinely interested in what other people are doing and what's interesting to other people. And so I love connecting with people and forming alignment within the environment that I'm in. And so I enjoy connecting.
I've heard an athlete sometimes stand up in front of a group and go, working in the bank, working in the telco, working in the consulting firm is just like playing footy, riding big waves, facing balls at 150 kilometres an hour. You've just got to have goals and attitude and discipline and you'll evolve. And you hear someone like that and you look at half the crowd and they go, oh God, here's a jock who doesn't get the corporate world. What did you do differently? How did you not go in with ego? Because that would have been challenging. I made the joke, but you did say to me one time they had these kids that you probably knew from younger years, and then they were giving you a bit of a hard time. You would have had to swallow your ego, because if you rock in there wearing a Wallabies jersey, everyone's going to think you're a wanker, apart from one or two older blokes. How did you do that? How did you step back and reinvent?
I think you can't say it's like playing the All Blacks at Eden Park or England at Twickenham. It's
well, if you want to sound like David Brandt off The Office,
but I think the key elements are actually what are the skills that you take out of that high performance environment that are very similar to a high performance business environment, and that's largely around culture and team. And so I do think there's a lot of similarities just in very different fields, but there's a lot of similarities around, really enjoyable team environments in a bank or in a business, had that really strong and cool culture. And it's the same in the best teams that I played in. We had really strong and cool cultures. And so, it's not like playing and facing the Haka, but being in a team environment where people like being around each other and there's that really sort of strong culture. It's very similar.
I've got to ask you about the Haka. When you've got these warriors across you and you're about to go into 80 minutes of battle, that's pretty tough. Like, I'm sure it gives them a psychological edge. And I know, didn't they, Wales one time said they can't do the Haka, and then the Kiwis had to do it in the change room. Do you know that story?
That's right. Well, I think before that there was the standoff Haka, whereby because the Haka is very much a challenge, and so as soon as one of the players facing the Haka turns away, then the All Blacks would turn away, and then the All Blacks did their Haka, and then the Welsh didn't turn away, and so they stood there facing off for, I think it was about a minute and a half. And as you can imagine, in the 85,000 seat stadium with the roof closed at Millennium Stadium in Cardiff, it just got louder and louder and louder to the point where the referee was trying to usher the players to turn and go away. And so that was like a really cool, and if you want to look it up on YouTube, look that up, because that is a really cool moment to watch. And then the following year, I believe, the Welsh Rugby Union said, actually, it's an unfair advantage, and the All Blacks aren't allowed to do the Haka after the anthems. We're just going to go straight into the game. And so the All Blacks did the Haka in the change rooms, and then went out and did the anthems. And I think the All Blacks got away to like a 25-point start within the first 10 minutes, and I think the Welsh thought, we'll just let them do the Haka next.
They can do it.
Exactly, all the way.
So I digress. The word that comes to me even talking to you today is self-awareness. You have really good self-awareness, and you also have a pause. And I can see sometimes you're thinking, what's he asking? And there's a small delay and a process of information.
Yep. Yep. I think.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, I think thoughtfulness is so important, and even responsiveness. So when something happens that is not planned and could disrupt someone or disrupt an environment, I think it's really important to contextualize it and actually understand and think about what it actually means. And that's probably sort of quite a broad comment, but I think that thoughtfulness is really important, and then responsiveness. And it's really easy to just fly into something, but I think it's actually step back and go, well, actually, what's the context? What does it mean? How will people respond? And so, EQ is really, really important.
It's a different side of you, because I think when we're talking in a coffee shop, probably I swear more, and you might follow suit. But I see that today there's that real gap between stimulus and response.
Yeah.
Who taught you that?
I don't know. I think you learn it as you go, and maybe a lot of that is natural, but also self-awareness is, and it's so important, self-awareness in team environments, because everyone needs to be treated differently. I know that people say, well, everyone needs to be treated the same, but people are motivated differently. People respond to different ways of talking and ways of working. And so actually having awareness of others then allows you then to probably have a lot of self-awareness.
You're sounding very psychological.
I feel that way. I've never done any psychological subjects in my life, but other than leadership, which is probably the most...
I think when you've played hundreds of games of rugby at the professional level, you develop some sort of awareness, one of you, two of others, and you're not going to be captain half your games or more than half your games at Waratah. You were captain, and that's a pseudo-psychologist, isn't it? You've got 15 men plus guys on a bench, and you've got to work out how are they today, what's going on in their life. It's complex. Yeah. Leadership and captaining a sporting team, we do not give anywhere near enough credit.
Yeah, and the longevity of it, because players come and go, and as you say, you got 15 players starting, and then we had 22 players dressed to play. So then you had 7 on the bench, and then you had maybe another 8 to 10 who wanted to be at least on the bench, but they wanted to be starting. And so you've got this dynamic where it is competitive within the environment, but you've got to make sure you drive a culture that's inclusive and is one team rather than competing against each other all the time. So
did you have mental skills coaches, psychologists, leadership training back then, or was it Eddie Jones would have been the coach?
Yeah, Eddie. So I was fortunate. So Rod McQueen to start with the Wallabies, and then Eddie Jones was after that. I mean, you go through, and even today, the best coaches are the ones that get the psychology of sport and know how to get the best possible performance out of each individual, and that's the art I see of coaching. I mean, there's all the strategic elements and specific skill coaching, but what's really powerful is the psychological understanding of each player to get the best performance.
And it's not just outsourced, so you get the mental skills coach or the psychologist to work with the players.
You can't fake it. You can't fake it. So you can't. It's got to be authentic.
So who's captain at home?
Not me. I've got to try and be home more often, I think. But I'm very fortunate to have a very, very supportive and capable wife.
You light up when you say that. There's a bit of a different light up. So I know with you, with Abby, with the boys, it's something that it's more than just home. It gives you a chance to down-regulate, but you love participating in life as well. So that's one of the questions I had, and we jumped into rugby, so we'll come back. But how do you stay connected? How do you stay, because you always look like you're connected, and you use that word a few times. You always look like you're present. Does that always work at home, or do you sometimes get feedback like I do sometimes, that you do all this shit with everyone else, and why can't you be present at home?
I get very similar feedback to that. I mean, it's but I think that being always on is not such a bad thing, and you know, maybe you get some people say, well, you should be, you walk in the front door and you have that third space, and you switch off, and you should be all in then at home. But I just it's actually probably, I think about it more actually, how do you involve your family in your life? And always on's okay, and we're all sort of part of it. It's sort of how I think about it, rather than saying, actually, here's my work life, then I'm going to have this sort of clearing my head space, then I'm going to go in, that's my home life. I sort of feel like, and I think that probably COVID's enabled a lot of that. You used to sort of say, actually, you're going to leave work at the front door, you're going to go into your house and work's left out, and then all of a sudden everyone's working from home, so work's in the house. And so I think that my view is that to be really authentic, you sort of bring it all together.
So this is eclectic, messy, working.
It's messy. It's
mix.
fast. It's sort of it's engaged. It's I'd love to get Abby's feedback. Maybe that's not how she feels, but I do think it's very difficult when you're in sort of big roles to leave it at the front door because you need to be on.
I don't think you can. Those people that say compartmentalise your life, Phil, go to work and then put a boundary, go home, it bleeds over.
Yeah, and even if you had the ability to do that, it's likely that you'll take the pressure mentally, even if it's subconsciously, because you should be doing something or responding to an email or calling someone back. You'll take it in, and it just, for me, it just doesn't work.
Do you do anything to transition though? So you're driving home and you're talking to a board member, you're talking to Chair Hamish, you're talking to Coach Eddie, you're talking to media. Well, I will often just sit outside the house and I'll just breathe for a couple of minutes, because I have had feedback unsolicited, Phil, I didn't ask for it, that I step inside and I'm still in my head if I've had a meeting, a call. So I just try and have a pause for 3 or 5 minutes and then just think about, okay, what am I transitioning into? And often it's crazy with 4 kids, but that helps me. I don't always do it. And invariably the times I don't do it, I get the feedback, you're still at work, where's your head? So do you have any little tips?
No, I probably should do that. There's a bit of tip I should take on board, but as you know, you hang up the phone and then even if you try to get that 3 to 5 minutes, it rings again.
Yeah.
But I do, the beauty is, going to the garage door opens, kids hear the garage door open, they'll come down the garage and there they are. So it's sort of not a massive transitioning period into the home. But I just think it's just that sort of probably that connectivity and engagement. How do you just engage with the kids as quickly as you can?
Are the kids and Abby excited about the role?
I think they're nervous.
Nervous?
I think the beautiful part of the role is that I'm so genuinely passionate about the sport. And Abby's supportive of me following my passion, and I'm gonna. It's not going to be an easy role. It's going to be a challenging role, but it's hopefully really rewarding.
How did you sell it to Abby? There's a World Cup coming up. It's in
that's
southern
right.
France. We're going to stay there after. But look at this villa.
Maybe that's how Abby saw it. But we all know it would be very different. I think Abby's been very supportive with all my career decisions.
Yeah. So onto your role as CEO, exciting role. Big role. And if I look at the results in the Rugby World Cup, 1987, 4th place. Australia won in 1991, 95 quarterfinals. We won in 1989 and we haven't won since. Runners-up, the team you were in 2003. What does it look like in 5 years? What's success for you? You're looking at that. Is it winning the World Cup, men's and women's?
Yeah, I think a lot of focus goes on to World Cups and performance at World Cups. I think what's really important for rugby in Australia is winning between World Cups as well. And I think it's okay to float in, like 2015 we made the final, but then 2016 we came back, we lost 3-0 to England. Super Rugby teams were poor, and so we just lost all the momentum. And so it's really important. You look at Ireland over the last 7 to 8 years, they've had really successful teams within World Cups, probably haven't done as well as World Cups as they'd like, but the fact that they're competing in their provincial competitions and they're winning test matches in Six Nations between World Cups, that's really important. And
they're a force now, aren't they? They're tough.
The centralised system. They've got their 4 clubs that do well, and then they work together as a unit nationally. And so they're really a really good case study of whilst World Cups are really important to perform at, winning between World Cups is equally as important. And so success looks like obviously doing well this World Cup, but then how do we build a sustainable high performance system that has us winning across the men's and women's game consistently between World Cups, and then hopefully winning World Cups.
Okay, so in 5 years, we look in the crystal ball. What else is happening? What's happening domestically? Because there's often an argument, do we have too many teams in Super Rugby? We've got 5 teams. Our percentage, I think when we had 3 or 4 teams, was up around 60 or 70%. It's dropped right down. You've heard this argument multiple times.
Yeah, so success looks like we need to do better across the system. And our Super Rugby teams need to do better, and there's we can talk at length around that. But if we think about how do you build up Super Rugby? How do we ensure that there's the connectivity between the club game to the professional game? And I think that's where we've sort of drifted and where the gap's been. We used to go and watch a club game, then you'd support your club player at a Waratahs game or a Reds game, and then you'd go and watch Wallabies. And now I think our fan base are probably choosing between going to a club game and going to a Super Rugby game. And so there's a big connection piece there. And I mean, a really big opportunity for us is the women's game. And you think about the World Cup last year in New Zealand, Eden Park, full stadium for when New Zealand won, the Black Ferns won the World Cup. You go to the Six Nations now, and there's 60,000 people at Twickenham, and we host a World Cup in 2029 here in Australia. And so the growth of the women's game and the focus on the women's game, and I believe that rugby clubs can be the beating heart of communities, and where it's done really well, that's what they are. And so the connectivity into the grassroots participation and making that culture of inclusiveness is really important.
You've also got rugby in the Olympics, which is a huge challenge, but also a huge opportunity, because you'll have some players that will only play the shorter format or specialise in that. So just throwing that into the mix as well. So you've got men's and women's World Cups, you've got the grassroots, you've got Super Rugby, and then every 4 years we'll throw in an Olympics for you.
Yeah, and every 2 years in between Commonwealth Games as well. So you got Did
you look at the job description, Champ? Did you actually? Did you
the complexity of everything? But and fortunately, both the men's and women's teams have qualified for Paris already. So which is really exciting, and the women's are very much a flagship team across Australian sport, and doing a really a good job. And the men have grown so much in the last 18 months. Won the World Series last year. So it's actually really exciting across all formats, which is the 15-a-side game's not for everyone. So that aspect of the sevens and some thought around non-contact as well is certainly on the agenda.
An article last week in ESPN said, throughout his career, Phil Waugh remained a relentless attack dog. Do you like that? A relentless attack dog. A breakdown and defensive warrior that did his best work away from the camera and often with little fanfare. Roughly 15 years on, he plans to chart a similar course as Rugby Australia's chief executive. Not a bad quote.
Not bad.
An attack dog.
Not bad. Attack dog, and
doing your work behind the scenes, behind the cameras.
And as I said, I think that I've played with a lot of passion on the field, and I intend to have that same level of passion and commitment in the role I'm going into.
And the role you're going into, Chair, Hamish McClellan, who you've worked with for a number of years as well, he's a strong character. He has strong views. How are you going to get that balance?
We've been working really closely together since Hamish came into chair. So we talk very frequently and discuss all aspects of the game and decision making. So I'm excited to work in that different relationship, because CEO chair is obviously a very different relationship, but also with the other directors that we've got such a capable board that, in my view, is really, really constructive. And so it's probably very fortunate to have that level of support and capability around the boardroom table as a CEO.
And you've been on the board for 5 years, so it's not like you've just been jettisoned in from banking and he has no idea about rugby. You've been dancing between the two worlds. So you've been there making decisions, you've seen what's happened behind. So it's been a training wheels.
Well, it's always the pressure changes though when you go into the CEO role, that's for sure. But I've been heavily involved, and I'm really excited for what's in front of the game here in Australia. And as I said, the capability around the table is probably second to none.
And how many new friends have you got? Like all those friends you haven't heard from?
Has everyone come out of the woodwork? I've always had a lot of feedback, and I'm sure I'll get a lot more in the next little while. But it's been really humbling in terms of the number of people who have connected and their congratulations. And it's as a bit like the performance aspect. I mean, a bit like, when you get the Wallaby jersey, anyone can put a Wallaby jersey on. It's actually then the performance you put onto the field in that Wallaby jersey. And, a bit like the same as this role. Anyone can be appointed CEO. Now it's actually the performance of the role that I go into that I'll be judged on.
Have you had anyone ring up and say, "Hey, Warrior, it's Jono. Yeah, they used to call me Mad Dog. We played together at the Warringah Rats. I haven't seen you since I was 9. Mate, I'll be in France later this year. Can you get me some tickets to the World Cup?"
I'm sure there's a few of those, but they can pay for them. But no, I think they've had some really funny calls. A mate up in Brewarrina last weekend was taking a junior team down to Tamworth to play in the state championships, and had me on loudspeaker to the team, and that was kind of cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
so what does that mean to you, to talk to a bunch of kids from Brewarrina? I love that. Because Dubbo's my town where I finished
playing.
So my
16-year-old son was refereeing in Dubbo for the state championships on the weekend, so they got the bus up on Friday, and then he came back late on Monday night. I think he refereed 7 or 8 games over the weekend, and I mean that's what is a pretty cool experience for boys and girls, to have that experience to go around the state or the country, playing rugby. So it's good.
So when you're talking to those young kids, big bright eyes from Brewarrina, what questions did they ask?
No, it was just more of a go down and enjoy it. As I said before, around the social responsibility we have of keeping kids active and keeping them involved and engaged. And I've been up to been put through Dubbo up into Cobar and Brewarrina and Warren and Burke, and it's just there's just so many good. There's so much strong talent up there, and just got to
big rugby league areas. So Union is Union got a plan out in those areas as well?
Yeah, I think it's not, rugby's in some of those towns are pretty strong, and also understanding the governance framework of rugby and the fact that a lot of all the community game is delivered through the member unions, being New South Wales for that area of Australia, and so just how do we connect and make sure that we support the member unions in delivering the community game.
I've got to ask you at least one challenging question, because we've had all the nice ones as well. So if I was someone who is sceptical, and if I didn't know you, and if I was looking on the outside, is there a chance I might think Rugby Australia has put you on to be more of a figurehead, to have McClellan pulling the strings behind the scenes? I actually saw a comment similar to that in Sydney Morning Herald. So there's obviously a few people out there who are sceptical, which you have diversity in opinion. What do you think when someone says that really you're in this role, huge role?
Yep. Yeah, I think it's such a aspirational role, I think, that comes with such massive responsibility that you're always going to have people that are going to question, have I had the training to do the role? What's the different dynamics across chair and CEO, and then through to Eddie Jones, the coach. And I went through a very thorough process to be the supported candidate, and so I mean, again, it sort of comes back to that belief, and I genuinely believe that in my time in my career right now, I'm well positioned with the support around me, because it's not a one man show. I think it's actually how do we work together as one team to deliver the game in Australia. And so whilst I'll have the CEO title, I've always, even when I had the captaincy title when I was playing, it was around actually who's playing around with me. How do I empower my leaders around me? How do I ensure I've got the best leaders in the team, whether it's the scrum, the line out, the defence, the back line, and it's very similar in this role. It's actually how to put the best people around and empower those people.
So talk to me about Eddie. I've got to ask about that, because the dynamic, it's fascinating, right? Because you were a 23, 24-year-old young man when you first played for the Wallabies. He was your coach. I know a few people who've worked with Eddie. They all say the same thing, that he just teaches them so much, but he's pretty ruthless on his standards as well. Now, he reports into you. Is that how the hierarchy works, or the structure?
So I think it's certainly a different dynamic. But
send him a text message and say, all right, Eddie, I'll tell you who's boss now, champ. You realign it?
Yeah, that's right. But I think, again, it's actually that real one team sort of mentality. And so we've got a chair and a board that's very involved, and we've got a head coach that's huge reputation and personality and hungry to succeed. And so I find it really exciting. I mean, I love that real ambition to win and that winning at all costs and bringing people on the journey. And those who have played with Eddie and played under Eddie, they appreciate that and they know that he'll get the best out of them.
Have you sat back at all in the last few weeks? Because you, at time of recording, you haven't started the role. It's starting in a few weeks. But have you sat back? Have you been out with Abby having a glass of wine, or did you catch a reflection in the mirror or in a lift, and you just went, "You're the man"? You like, oh, not the man. You don't say shit like that. But did you actually go, like, wow? Have you had in coaching psychology, we call it lag time. So I look at you today, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud of all the work you've done, and we've only danced across it today. Like, you've worked your ass off as a player. You worked your ass off studying. You worked your ass off in banking for 15 years, and now you've fallen into this role, but you've been training for this role all your life. Lag time is your catch up how others see. You've had multiple messages from friends and Jono from the Rats, the 9-year-old who wants tickets. Have you had a quiet moment where you've actually just sat and reflected and caught up with what's happened?
Probably not, to be honest. But I think
No. See the pause.
have you? I haven't at that moment to stop and reflect in the enormity of, I guess, the responsibility. But I will before I start.
Good. But when you do think about that, what does it feel like? Like you light up?
Yeah, I love sport. And rugby was always my number one sport. I mean, I played heaps of cricket as well and love cricket, but rugby was always the sport. And that's why I sort of go back to where it's really powerful is in communities. And my weekends were down at Rat Park, and like as a kid, and so that was our community centre. And so how do you ensure that we bring that back? And you got young boys and girls walking around town in Wallaby jerseys because 2003 you just walk around town and everyone knew who you were as a player, and everyone was wearing Wallaby jerseys. And I think we've got that real opportunity to bring that back.
So when you do have that moment, what do you reckon you'll think?
I'll think that's you got a big responsibility. You got to do well.
Yeah, it's exciting. What is also exciting is finding out a little bit more about you. Performance Uncovered. 13 questions. Just hit me with the answer that comes. First of all, what is your favourite movie?
Dumb and Dumber.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
No way. You sold Petey? I reckon I know the majority of quotes.
There you go. Good. There you go. It resonates with you.
That John Denver's full of crap.
Right,
is it really your favourite movie, Dumb and Dumber?
I like that sort of escapism, and that certainly makes me escape.
Don't take this the wrong way, but I do not give a shit about Rugby CEO role now. I just reckon you're a legend for Wizard. Do you know the movie Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah.
You do? Yeah. Yeah, well, okay. We've had no one answer that. The question 2, what song do you know all of the lyrics to?
All right, now this, I'm actually no good on music. Like I listen to a bit of music, but I don't know the words to any song. I know the words to the anthem, and that's about it.
The Australian anthem. All right, we'll run with that. Question 3, what food can't you get enough of?
I do like Japanese cuisine.
Did you ever play over in Japan?
No, I played test matches in Japan, but not a club in Japan, but a beautiful country.
Do you make a nice Japanese meal yourself?
No,
okay.
But I can outsource that.
Question number 4, what book has had the biggest impact on your life?
I'll go back. I do a bit of reading, but I sort of go back to when I was really young, and I read Simon Poitevin's autobiography, For Love, Not Money. And I was only maybe 10 or 11 when I read that book, and it just resonated with me because similar to my earlier conversation around the fact I would have had the same ambition to play for the Wallabies, whether it was amateur or professional, and it's very much for love and not the money.
My dad gave me that book. Simon Poitevin went out to Glen Innes, where Dad was the captain coach. Glen Innes Rugby Union many years ago, and Poitevin spoke, and then a number of years later he got the book, and Dad gave it to me. So it was actually a really good book, just the passion he's got. Question number 5, what is your most meaningful possession?
I've kept, when I swapped jerseys or played in Wallaby jerseys, but those jerseys are really meaningful for me just because it's actually, it's the end of the journey when you're actually playing for the Wallabies because you sort of did so much work to get there, but actually having all the different national jerseys and obviously Wallaby jerseys as well is pretty.
Do you have them in a pool room somewhere?
I've got a few framed, but then I've got them all sort of boxed up.
Who've you got?
I've got Neil Back, so I've got a Neil Back's jersey from the World Cup final, so my World Cup final jersey and Neil Back's World Cup final jersey. I was wish that we were the winner and not him, but anyway, I've got Richie McCaw, Corné Krieger, all the Josh Kronfeld, all the big sort of international stars.
Question 6, what does your weekly fitness routine look like?
I try and train most mornings. I try and train every morning, but I'll go to PCYC, old school gym, and I do catch up on. I do the old orbital for 20 minutes and catch up on my replays on the mini games for Super Rugby or Test matches. Then do circuit weights. I go pretty hard for about 45 minutes.
Because you're looking lean. We caught up a few weeks ago and I did say to you, you're looking pretty trim. And I think we did catch up a few years ago and I sent you a text after to go on my 6-week shred. You weren't looking as lean.
I was looking at I was probably on the healthy diet back then. But,
you're on the banking diet.
But yeah, that's right. But now I think I know I operate better when I train, and just my head's clearer. I'm a better person, so I just need to train more often.
Have you started the sauna?
It's funny you mention that because my wife has just gone and started with the infrared sauna, and then I was in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago, and I made sure I was in the sauna, and it's been good. I've got to, and then now we're talking about putting one in at home.
Good boy. And are you stacking that with the fasting as well?
The fasting's good. Yeah. So I've got.
You're a good student.
Yeah. I try to listen to information and then disseminate whether it's the right mix for me.
Question number 7. What is your favourite failure?
This might resonate with you, but I think my first marriage failure was probably one that was, hopefully my only marriage failure too, by the way.
But expensive. I think, you don't have another one.
But I think, you learn a lot about yourself, and it opens up new opportunity.
Question 8, what do you do to recharge or to switch off? Because it's an interesting one, that, because you said
training. Like I recharge from training. I feel far more energised when I've trained, and that's, people will go, "Well, you're exhausted. Why would you go to the gym?" I'm like, well, actually, that's my way of powering up.
So if I put my scientific hat on, down-regulation is twofold. One is psychological detachment. You totally get through that through fitness. 2 is parasympathetic activation. So where you drop the heart rate, you drop the blood pressure, you drop blood flow, you drop breathing rate. Do you do anything in that space?
Hopefully when I sleep, but I don't sleep that much. No, I don't. Maybe there we go. There's another tip I can take on board.
Question number 9, how do you prepare for what I call performance moments or key moments? So if we go to presenting to the board to get the role as CEO, what did you do leading up to that?
Or just, fail to prepare to fail. So I think I'm much better in presenting from the heart and from what I know than any sort of reading material. And so, I like to make sure I know my material and then speak from the heart.
Question 10, what keeps you up at night? Now, your kids are a bit older, so you can't say that.
What keeps me up at night is the pressure to perform, probably. If I've got a big moment, it'll be actually I want to really nail it. And so then you go actually making sure that I've got positive thoughts, not the negative thoughts of failing within that moment. And so it's that real sort of self-pressure to perform. Are
you then ruminating and thinking about how you're going to do that? Do you come up with a solution?
Yeah, I try and vision the successful outcome of that moment.
So you use imagery, you can close your eyes and you can see the presentation. And did you do that when you played footy as well? Would you use imagery?
I do all the time, yeah.
Okay. Because a lot of people go, I can't do that. Visualization is only one part of imagery. About 1 out of 5 people have got what's called aphantasia. So that's the inability to visualize. But imagery is you can use your senses, taste, sound, touch as well. So are you multi-faculty on that?
Maybe. I'm not probably the taste and all that other stuff that you mentioned, but no, I just sort of try and visualise what success looks like.
Question 11, what's your number 1 productivity tip? Now, this is going to be important as you move into a role where everyone wants you.
Make decisions quickly. Just what frustrates me the most is people who don't make decisions. And if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. But not making a decision is not a right decision.
12, who has been your most influential mentor or mentors?
I've been fortunate to have a lot of influence around me, but I'd say that a gentleman by the name of Andrew Wennebaum, who was the president of Sydney University Football Club when I first left school and went to Sydney Uni and left Warringah, which was a big step, but he then managed me pretty much through my professional career, and he won't even know this, but he certainly was in terms of just guidance and keeping it real.
And question number 13, what is your definition of high performance?
Outperforming your ability. So performing better than your capability.
Looking forward to seeing you do that.
Hopefully it's a high bar.
Well, it is. You've come in at a stage where Rugby Australia is not at the top. I've said this to you off air. I think if you ever go to a team, you don't want to go to a team that's been winning for a decade. You've got everything to lose, nothing to gain. There's huge opportunities for you. Huge opportunities with the Men's World Cup, huge opportunities with the Women's. We got, as you said, Commonwealth Games, Olympic Games. Then we've got Super Rugby as well. Then you've got local rugby. My God. Yeah. You got a lot on your plate.
It's exciting.
I've enjoyed today. Thank you for not just turning up, but you've been authentic and you didn't pause on everything. I could see the emotion and you light up. You're in the right role.
No, I'm looking forward to it. And as you say, there's lots to do, but you want to be in exciting roles where you can make a difference.
So in finishing, is there a question I should have asked you or you'd like me to ask you, or is there a question you want to flip it and ask me?
No, I think you covered it all. Any tips from you, having been around the environment?
Number one is keep enjoying it. I think as soon as you start wearing it like a burden or carrying a cross, everyone else sees it. And I think you've done pretty good training for it. And just keep that balance. And balance is different for everybody as well. But just keeping the connection with the kids, the connection with Abby, that's your biggest challenge. How do you fit that in and do that as well? And as I say this, I can hear Tony in the background. Practice what you say to other people. But yeah, I've got a couple of different jobs, work with a few different sporting teams. I love it. So I love seeing the passion you've got. They would be the two from my end. Now that's N equals 1, because when I haven't been having fun and when I haven't looked after stuff at home, it's led to big problems.
Good.
Yeah. Wiz, any tips?
I'll just make a video, man.
Very good.
And on that, we'll just finish. Wiz just makes the videos. Phil, thanks, mate.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Hey everyone, it's the Wizard here with Andrew. Phil's just left the studio. We've had a bit of time to reflect on the podcast and what happened in it. So, Andrew, what do you think?
Well, I took a coffee break, Wiz, and just sat down and reflected and made a few notes. I think if I do this straight away, I'll just go, there are a couple of really clear messages that just jumped out throughout that whole presentation. One is the word connected, connectivity, connection. And a number of times Phil used that word. It was authentic. It was about having that connection with his family. It was about having that connection with grassroots. It was about having that connection with the board, with his chair, with Eddie Jones. It is just central to everything he does. And it was authentic when he used those examples. So that was the first word that popped out to me, is connection. The second one, there's a real thoughtfulness. And I haven't really seen that with Phil. Because I've seen him in social settings at a few banking events. I mentioned the tour to Cure Ball where he gave me advice that I'm now father of 4. And also catch up with him once or twice a year. We might have coffee or have lunch and just chew the fat. But I've never seen that real pause between stimulus and response. And I know it's an awareness he has to be conscious of the message, whereas when I'm with him in a social setting or one-on-one, it's not being recorded and amplified to lots of people. Yeah. That was something really new I saw, and even when I asked him, he gave a bit of a cheeky grin as if to say, oh yeah, I do that, and you pick that up. It's a real skill that he's obviously learned over the years, is to just pause, reflect, quickly process, think about how can this be taken out of context, and then give the answer.
Yeah, and I actually had a similar note to yours as well, and I was thinking, starting as a CEO, that's probably going to be a massive help when he's talking to media. I don't know if he picked that up as a player and it helped him then as well, but I think, being the CEO, that's going to be a huge help when someone tries to, spin him a question and catch him out. He's gonna have that down pat.
And he's done a lot of media as well. So obviously he mentioned his mentor. He mentioned the work he's done as captain and all the media training. I think all that conglomeration together has led to that as a skill. That pause, reflect, and then give the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I picked up from that interview was he was talking about he mentioned it a couple of times. He likes to take things one step at a time and just work on the next thing and get through that. And he obviously has a bit of a long-term plan, but he just likes to get through that next thing. And that's pretty handy in rugby. You go the next tackle, the next tackle, the next tackle. And then he kind of has taken that into his career after rugby as well. He talked about, I worked at this role and I got good at that, and then I went to the next thing, and then And so he didn't have that sort of super long-term plan where I have to be this. He was just kind of like, I'm just going to take this next thing as it comes, and I'm going to hit that, and then I'm going to go to the next thing.
Or did he? Because when he used that phrase, and I do like that phrase, you've got to earn it. So you've got to earn it as a player, and then you've got to earn it. And again, he pushed back at me when I said you were behind, or did you feel like you were behind the kids that went to banking straight away and then they had 10 or 15 years. He said, no, if you reframe that, there's a different skill set. Yeah. I wonder whether he did have a goal to be CEO of Rugby Australia and he just didn't want to let on in this interview, but he's definitely earned it over the last 15 plus years in the corporate world and sitting on board, sitting on the trust. He's done a lot of work behind the scenes, and that really came out in our interview today.
Oh yeah, you can tell he loves it. I mean, every time he was talking about rugby, he always went back. He wants to build that grassroots, that community feeling around the clubs. So,
and what you don't see in a podcast, you will see if you watch the video version of this, is the passion. He lights up and you see the big smile, the eyes light up, and it was passion about rugby. It was about passion for the world game. It was passion about the workload and the challenge coming up. So you can see his heart is totally in this role.
Oh, absolutely. I think he'd be good as the CEO of any sport, really, but I think rugby, he's going to smash that.
The other thing that surprised me, Dumb and Dumber. I don't think we've ever had... We haven't had one person, because you know that's one of my favourite movies of all time.
It's brilliant. It's one of the funniest movies of all time.
And it's because we've been talking some quite serious topics about rugby, his relationship with Hamish McClellan, Eddie Jones, what he's got to do, and then he just threw Dumb and Dumber at us. Awesome.
I was not that threw me off so much. I had to stop. I was typing notes on my phone. I had to stop.
I could see you having a bit of a chuckle
to myself. It's a great movie. And can I just ask, what is it with football players and Japanese food? We've had a bunch of them on now, and a lot of them have said it's their favourite type of food. Now, do we need to launch an investigation into this? What's going on there?
Maybe we just need to ask a different question other than Japanese food. As a footballer, what is your favourite food? George Gregan said Japanese. Reed Marnie, I believe, said
I'm pretty sure
Japanese was his. And then Phil said it as well. Well, look, it's a great food. I love it. If you eat the right Japanese food, it's going to help you with your weight management as well, but it just tastes good. I do think, though, with the rugby union players, Japan players go there a lot for national games, but also a lot of players, when they get towards those last few years, like George did, they'll go and play with a Japanese franchise.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense.
Wiz, my final message is I believe Rugby Australia is in good hands. There's a lot of work for Phil to do. He acknowledged that. When he left the studio, he said, oh God, look at my phone, it's blowing up. But when you combine the passion he has for the game and for life, when you look at how thoughtful he is, when you look at the connectivity he wants to bring through the game and through in a bit of lightheartedness as well, I think he's really setting himself up, and I do hope setting Rugby Australia up to have a very successful future.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to start watching more rugby games now, not for the players, just for the CEO. I'm going to see what he's doing on the sidelines.
I think he'll be happy with that, Wiz.